The hour had slipped beyond midnight. After a restless night spent tossing and turning, I finally rose from my bed to fetch a glass of water. The living room lights remained aglow. Indeed, it was that night. My brother Casey had dispatched Paul to stay with me for a time. Upon learning of his fate, my heart shattered into pieces. His wife had betrayed him, leaving his world in ruins. Paul, who had shared countless years with his wife, found himself caught off guard in the most devastating manner. Casey's son was navigating his own tumultuous period, struggling to cope with it as well. "Jessica, please take him in," Casey had implored me. "He seeks tranquility." Though my acquaintance with Paul was limited, it was clear that the depths of his despair stemmed from the treachery of a woman. Our family had endured an immense amount of loss. It has been 7 years since I lost my husband, Jacob. At the age of 60, I faced the abrupt loss of him due to a heart attack. In one fleeting moment, we were crafting the very essence of our dream home. It was meant to be completed within a year, yet the following moment, everything came to a halt. Jacob's death turned my entire world on its head. Left to my own devices, I have borne this profound emptiness within me for years. Yet, in recent times, the solitude has been weighing more heavily. This evening unfolded like one of those unforgettable nights. Are you prepared? This tale transcends the realm of the ordinary. This narrative delves into the hazy boundaries, the tumultuous emotions that swirl uncontrollably, and the unvoiced cries of a confession poised to emerge. Each instant of this experience may ignite something profound within you, unveiling emotions you were unaware of, challenging limits you never imagined could be surpassed. If this tale has captured your anticipation, don't hesitate to press that subscribe button and activate notifications. Your support is invaluable to me. With deliberate steps, I approached the living room. As I ventured a few steps further, my gaze fell upon Paul, who was seated there, engrossed in a romantic film flickering on the screen. In that instant, my thoughts were solely focused on ensuring that Paul could discover a sense of tranquility during his time here. Yet, unbeknownst to me, life had devised a different course. So many things had already begun to unravel, and it would require just a single step, merely one, to alter the course of everything. Paul turned to me and inquired, "Did I wake you up?" His voice carried a blend of hesitation and an urgent longing for solace. I found myself standing there in my nightgown, yet truthfully, that was of little consequence. In that moment, a profound sense of solitude enveloped me like a heavy fog. "No," I replied, offering him a gentle smile. "I merely arrived to fetch some water." In that moment, the reality struck me with a profound sense of solitude. I yearned for it not to conclude just yet. Perhaps a few moments in Paul's company could fill the evening's void. Perhaps sharing a movie could restore a sense of normalcy in my life, a reminder that peace is still within reach. "Come sit, let's watch it together," Paul said, gesturing to the vacant space on the couch beside him. The choice came easily. I yearned to embrace the night, seeking even a flicker of warmth, a touch of significance. I took a seat beside him. The film commenced, yet my attention drifted from the unfolding scenes. Within me lay an elusive essence, a mystery I struggled to unravel. Paul's presence, the manner in which this unfamiliar figure occupied the space beside me, the subtle tremor in his voice, everything about it felt distinctly unusual. As the tender moments unfolded on the screen, I momentarily averted my gaze. The couple on the screen, inching closer together, stirred memories I believed were long buried. In a moment of unintended movement, I turned my head just enough to graze Paul's arm. I withdrew swiftly. Apologies escaped my lips, my gaze flickering nervously to the side. I had no intention of doing that. Paul paused for a moment, then offered a slight nod and replied, "It's all right, don't fret about it." Yet, in that instant, the distance that separated us seemed to diminish. The film continued to roll, yet everything felt irrevocably altered. In that moment, neither Paul nor I could grasp any semblance of peace. Despite our proximity, the void within each of us seemed to grow, creating an insurmountable barrier. That night would linger in my memory as the beginning of an intricate journey, one far more complex than I ever envisioned. That moment served as a harbinger of the impending transformation that lay ahead. The evening had veered into the realm of the peculiar. As I sat on the couch, engrossed in a romantic film alongside Paul, an undeniable attraction began to stir within me. Despite the softness of my nightgown and the solitude that had enveloped me for what felt like an eternity, the proximity to another man ignited an undeniable tension that hung in the air, impossible to overlook. Paul's presence offered no solace. It was awakening insights within me. Perhaps it was the solitude I had embraced for so long, but the proximity to another man, in this manner, awakened something deep within me. It was perplexing and strange, leaving me in a state of uncertainty, yet undeniably, I was experiencing something for Paul. On that night, everything began to fall into place. Not a moment of relaxation graced me until the final credits rolled. Once the movie concluded, I rose, retreated to my room, and settled onto my bed, lingering in silence for a time. I found myself in need of contemplation, yet the subject eluded me. I was completely unaware. Slumbering amidst a tempest of emotions felt far from a simple reset. The night was a restless one, filled with tossing and turning. The absence of restful slumber pulled me into the dawn. As the dawn broke, I took my seat at the piano, yearning to dispel the lingering unease within me. For nearly 7 years, solitude had been my constant companion, and each morning, I yearned for a semblance of normalcy to return to my life. The piano resonated with the warmth of an old companion, offering a touch of solace and evoking memories of Jacob. As my fingers glided over the keys, I held on to the hope that this morning would offer me some solace as well. Suddenly, a sound pierced the stillness outside. A shadow emerged before me. Initially, I was oblivious to his presence, but as the melody wove through the atmosphere, he pushed open the front door and stepped inside. Engrossed in my game, I remained oblivious to his presence until, quite unexpectedly, I glimpsed him standing silently, observing me. For a fleeting moment, my fingers became icy, and that tightness within me. Indeed, it surged forth, more powerful than before. Yet Paul merely smiled at me, as if everything in the world was perfectly in order. "That was beautiful," he remarked, "thank you. Truly, that stands as the finest birthday present I have ever received." In that fleeting instant, a wave of exhilaration washed over me. As Paul entered, the atmosphere seemed to change, as if we had crossed the threshold into an entirely new realm. Then, he spoke in a serene, authentic manner that was entirely new to me. "What I just expressed? Indeed, it is. Observing you for merely a few moments was the most delightful experience I've had in quite a while, and did you realize? Today marks my 40th birthday." It was not long before I recognized the profound impact those words had on my inner self. I turned my gaze away, attempting to reconcile the tumult of feelings with the warmth of his praise. In that moment, after what felt like an eternity, a flicker of connection washed over me, and I could feel the winds of change beginning to stir. Following the thrill of that morning, anticipation for the evening began to swell within me. Discovering that it was Paul's 40th birthday ignited a desire to do something, anything, to infuse the day with a sense of normalcy, perhaps even a touch of the extraordinary. A sudden inspiration struck, and I glanced over at him. "Is today your birthday?" I inquired. "Very well, let us raise a toast to this occasion. Shall we indulge in some wine and slice into a cake this evening?" Paul bestowed upon me a smile that radiated surprise. "Well, if you're suggesting it, I suppose tonight could actually be enjoyable," he remarked, a playful glint dancing in his eyes. After a moment's hesitation, he continued with a playful smile, "But there's a twist. Once more, I implore you to grace me with your piano playing. There's no escape from this." With a chuckle, I attempted to dispel the growing anxiety swirling within me. "Very well," I replied, "but only if we uncork a fine bottle of wine and raise a proper toast." That seemingly insignificant exchange etched itself into my mind more profoundly than I was willing to acknowledge. Emotions surged within me, yet I stifled them, convincing myself that this night was merely about restoring a sense of normalcy. It was merely a birthday, a modest celebration. That is all. However, Paul uttered a remark that was both nonchalant and profoundly surprising, leaving me momentarily disoriented. He gazed at me with that familiar innocent expression and inquired, "How old are you?" "What, 45. I paused for a moment. I had always endeavored to embrace a sense of youthfulness, yet the sincerity of that compliment took me by surprise. A smile crept onto my face. "Oh, not quite," I replied, dismissing it lightly, yet it was difficult to conceal the flicker of excitement his words ignited within me. Deep down, I sensed a tug-of-war, caught between the comforting glow of his affection and the tempest of feelings I struggled to contain. As evening descended, Paul and I uncorked our wine and nestled into our celebration. In our conversation, a bond began to form between us. His warmth and the way he paid attention enveloped me in a comforting embrace. An undeniable connection lingered between us, a magnetic force intensifying with each fleeting second. Within me, a voice persistently urged me to approach this as if it were just another typical evening. Then Paul lifted his glass, a smile dancing on his lips, and with a playful glint in his lively eyes, he asked, "So when will you play something for me? It's clear that escape is not an option for you." For a brief instant, I found myself pausing. With a deep breath, I declared, "All right, let's do it." I positioned myself at the piano, allowing the melody to cascade once more, yearning for it to soothe the tempest within me. With every note, I sensed a change, as if an invisible thread pulled me nearer to him, even as I became enveloped in the melody. In some inexplicable manner, I discovered solace in his attentive listening, in the genuine appreciation he showed, as if my words held the utmost significance in the universe. What I envisioned as a straightforward celebration transformed into something altogether different. In that instant, it was as if I caught a fleeting glimpse of a sensation I had long been deprived of, something profoundly authentic. My vision wavered as my fingers danced across the keys. Every note awakened a feeling within me, yet I struggled to pinpoint its essence. Paul's voice lingered softly in my thoughts, and it seemed as though my heart and mind were gradually separating. Engulfed in the whirlwind of it all, I found myself oblivious to the moment of cessation. My hands instinctively sought another melody when, out of nowhere, Paul materialized beside me. He laid his hand softly atop mine. "You are an extraordinary woman," he murmured, his voice gentle and slightly unsteady. "And your piano playing is simply exquisite." His words reverberated in my mind, creating an unsettling void in their wake. His warm hands resting over mine had a unique ability to anchor me, even as my emotions plunged further into chaos. "Come on, you're tired," he said softly, his voice imbued with a calm reassurance. "Shall we take a moment to settle onto the couch? A delightful surprise awaits you." With a tender caress, Paul led me to the couch. Though I struggled to fully grasp the unfolding events, there was an undeniable weight to the moment that resonated deeply within me. As I settled into my seat, my mind remained a tempest of swirling thoughts. Paul made his way back to the piano. I observed his hands gliding seamlessly across the keys, and in an instant, he began to play my cherished melody. It was immediately familiar to me. The melody had been my cherished companion for years, always awakening a profound emotion within me. As he strummed the notes, my heart quickened with anticipation. Each note resurrected memories I was unprepared to confront. I simply remained in my seat, absorbing the sounds around me. As the music enveloped the space, it sparked a fire within me. Eventually, I found myself unable to remain seated any longer. The melody he played beckoned to me, drawing me in as if it were a siren's call. Gradually, I approached him, striving to soothe the tumult within my heart. As I approached, positioning myself beside him, uncertainty washed over me, leaving me at a loss for action. "You're truly exceptional at this," I remarked, my voice quivering as I struggled to conceal the rapid thumping of my heart. "And you're playing the tune that I adore." My words lingered in the atmosphere, resonating throughout the space as my feelings battled inside me. "Who is it that you are, Paul?" I inquired, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. You're truly starting to affect me. Never have I experienced such feelings before. A whirlwind of emotions engulfed me, overwhelmed, confused, excited, terrified, and undeniably happy, all intertwining in a chaotic dance within my heart. Our gazes locked, and the distance between us vanished, allowing me to sense the warmth of his breath. Gazing into his eyes, I felt as though I was descending into an entirely different realm. In that fleeting moment, time came to a standstill. His gaze sent my heart racing and enveloped me in warmth. In that instant, it seemed as though we were the sole inhabitants of the universe. All things aligned in an unexpected manner. In that instant, it seemed as though the universe had contracted to encompass only the two of us. All else dissolved into the background, and in that moment, clarity emerged, revealing a new perspective. Our gazes intertwined, and in that fleeting moment, the world around us faded into insignificance. In an instant, the chaos, the trepidation, and the whirlwind of thoughts evaporated, leaving just Paul and me in a serene stillness. His hand settled softly on my waist, strong enough to anchor me, yet tender enough to refrain from any force. My mind whirled in a dizzying dance, and I found it impossible to discern whether it was the wine or the torrent of emotions coursing through me. Without Paul anchoring me, I questioned if I would remain upright. The gaze in his eyes drew me nearer, and in that instant, his warmth enveloped me, instilling a profound sense of safety that anchored me amid the surrounding turmoil. You need to rest, he said softly, gently steering me toward the couch. His words wrapped around me like a soothing balm, while the sensation of his hands resting on my waist stirred a mix of comfort and unease within me. As I settled into my seat, his hands remained for a fleeting moment, and once more, our gazes intertwined. Uncertainty enveloped me, leaving me at a loss for words and emotions. The warmth of his touch rendered the night unforgettable, imbued with a power I struggled to articulate. That evening on the couch transformed into an exhilarating, indelible experience that I will cherish forever. The events unfolded with such rapidity that I scarcely had a moment to absorb it all before dawn arrived. As I blinked awake, I rose and made my way to the living room. The aroma of coffee drifted in from the kitchen, gently rousing me from my drowsy reverie. There he stood, Paul, in the kitchen, bare-chested, crafting a cup of coffee. His body, radiating warmth and vitality from the previous night, was laid bare for all to see. What about me? Reflecting on last night, an unusual feeling coursed through my entire being. My nightgown and underwear lay strewn across the floor, a testament to the chaos of the evening. The mere recollection of it all stirred a blend of nerves and exhilaration within me. As I replayed the night in my mind, a deeper sense of confusion washed over me. What was about to unfold now? Where on earth would I even start to unravel that mystery? However, one thing stood out unmistakably. A bond existed between us that was unlike anything I had ever experienced. This night, this moment seemed to herald the beginning of a transformation that could alter the course of my life eternally. Paul pivoted away from the kitchen, his gaze meeting mine, eyes gentle and smile inviting. A silence enveloped us, heavy with the weight of unvoiced thoughts. As I stood there observing him, I endeavored to unravel the complexities of the situation, to decipher the emotions swirling within me. The chaos was overwhelming. Uncertainty enveloped me, leaving me at a loss for the next step, unsure of how to progress. In that moment, I felt utterly adrift, entirely enveloped by the experience. Yet, concurrently, I sensed a change unfolding, and I understood that it was unstoppable. As I stood there as Jessica, a whirlwind of excitement and confusion enveloped me. Since last night, nothing had seemed to fall into place for me. All unfolded in the blink of an eye. My clothes lay scattered on the floor, and as I cast a glance their way, I shut my eyes for a brief moment, shaking my head ever so slightly. The intricacies of it all left me in a haze, unable to decipher my thoughts, much less my emotions. I sprang to my feet and made my way to the bathroom. A shower was essential. I sought to cleanse not just my body but my mind, to escape the tempest of emotions that threatened to engulf me. My nightgown and underwear remained exactly in their place. The chaos held no significance for me. All I desired was to immerse myself in the cascade of warm water, to find refuge from the turmoil, even if only for a fleeting moment. Eventually, I emerged from the shower, enveloping myself in a towel. In that moment, the door swung open unexpectedly. Paul stood there, a figure caught in the moment. I stood still, caught in a moment of disbelief. In that fleeting instant, we remained perfectly still. Our eyes met and held, entwined in a gaze so profound it seemed as if time itself had ceased to flow. Uncertainty enveloped me, leaving me at a loss for direction. The turmoil and intensity reflected in my gaze were unmistakable, leaving me feeling utterly bare and defenseless. And yet, despite my efforts, the words surged forth, breaking free from within me. "Text, I have no idea what's happening," I admitted, my voice quivering slightly. "What we are undertaking. I'm aware of the wrongness, yet it feels as though I'm lost in a dream." Paul advanced another step toward me. His eyes brimmed with a tumult of conflicting emotions. Neither of us could foresee the unfolding events. In that fleeting moment, I yearned to express something, yet the words eluded me entirely. "Your coffee's ready," Paul said, his voice trembling slightly. As my gaze wandered to him, I was struck by the chaotic yet oddly captivating nature of it all. The future was not on my mind. I simply existed within that moment. As I settled into my chair with a warm cup of coffee, the turmoil in my heart continued to swirl. Sitting across from Paul, our eyes met, and memories of what transpired between us flooded back. Everything unfolded in a whirlwind, leaving me struggling to catch my breath. What have we done? What emotions stirred within us? I yearned to articulate my thoughts, to weave them into something coherent, yet the right words eluded me like shadows in the dusk. "Jessica," Paul began, his voice heavy with tension. "Our actions were undeniably misguided. I am aware of that. What led us to allow this to unfold?" His eyes revealed a blend of guilt and a deeper comprehension. He understood, as I did, that everything had unraveled beyond our grasp. Shouldn't we feel a sense of regret about this? It was a mistake we should have avoided. A moment of stillness hung in the air. My thoughts were a labyrinth, yet at last, I discovered my voice. Perhaps. Everything unfolded in a blur, yet deep down, it felt all wrong. We allowed complexities to weave their way into our lives, and in retrospect, it all seems to lack coherence. "This was an error for the two of us," I remarked. A heaviness settled upon my chest, yet an odd sense of relief washed over me as I acknowledged that we had both crossed a line. Paul fell silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the floor, before finally lifting his eyes to meet mine. "Let's pretend this never happened, Jessica," he said, his voice calm yet gentle. "For the benefit of us both, it seems we must part ways with this chapter. What benefit could possibly arise from prolonging this situation, particularly when everything is already in disarray? We require some distance from one another." Upon hearing those words, a deep chord within me vibrated with understanding. He was indeed correct. Perpetuating this would only bring pain to us both. "Indeed," I replied, inhaling deeply. "Perhaps this is ultimately for the best. Perhaps your departure is the answer we seek." "It seems to be the wisest decision for both of us," Paul acknowledged, his demeanor resolute. "I must do this," he declared. "This decision is beneficial for us both." We lingered in silence for a few moments, simply gazing at one another. In that instant, we both understood the significance of this choice, acknowledging that our past actions, those shadowy times, were merely an error. Confronting that reality could be the initial stride toward rectifying the situation. Rather than ensnaring one another in a web of negativity, it seemed that granting each other the necessary space was the sole path to progress. I trust that my tale resonated with you. This journey has been nothing short of exhilarating, and the joy of sharing it with you has been immense. If you wish to delve deeper into tales such as this, remember to subscribe. Activate notifications to ensure you're among the first to discover when a new episode is released. Your likes and comments truly hold immense value for me. Your thoughts and feelings resonate deeply with me, fueling my motivation. Your encouragement is invaluable in my creative journey. My heartfelt gratitude to each of you, and I look forward to our next